Hi, everyone. My name is Gladys Shaw. I am a member of NSPN and on the Mental Health and Advocacy subgroup under the Advocacy Committee. And today we're going to talk about doing postcards and sending out postcards to our representatives. So here is just a brief overview of the organization of today's event. So we did our introduction. We're going to go over how to find our representatives. We're going to briefly talk about some active mental health legislation and then direct you all to a document that we have created on the mental health advocacy group to outline all of the mental health bills that are active in the 118th Congress. Then we're going to go over writing your postcard, and we will end with a Q&A. The Q&A will not be recorded, just so everyone has just an open and judgment-free platform to ask their questions. And if anyone is watching this after the event has taken place or on YouTube or anything like that, please see the contact information on the last slide for where you can send your questions, and we will try to answer them as soon as possible. Okay, so just a brief overview of what NSPN's Mental Health Advocacy Subgroup does. So it was created in 2021, and the idea was to provide awareness to the unique mental health needs of science policy advocates. So the activity of just advocating for various bills, proposals, especially us as scientists being in the weeds and on the ground floor of all of these different regulations that are taking place, does play a toll on our own mental health. So that was the hole that I saw in all of the advocacy initiatives, focusing on the actual advocate themselves and making sure that they are keeping up with their mental health, so that they can go out and promote what they are promoting in the most healthy capacity that they possibly can. And number two, this subgroup wanted to bring awareness to mental health legislation that's currently on discussion on the Hill. And we are using science to bolster our positions. So that's essentially what we're doing here. We will be taking bills and looking at legislations, resolutions, and just putting our opinion into it, just specifically focusing on mental health related legislation. So here is the organization of the US Congress. Many of you may already know this, but I just want to get everyone up to speed so that we all start on level playing ground. So the Congress of the United States is the legislative branch of the federal government, and it has two different parts. It has the Senate, which has 100 members, 2 representatives per state, and each representative is elected every 6 years. And the House of Representatives. So there are 435 members in total, and the number of representatives is proportional to the state's population. And these representatives are elected every 2 years. It comes in waves, so not all 435 members are up for election every 2 years. It's a subset of each one, so that there are some people from the previous group staying in for the group afterwards. Okay, so just a brief overview of why we are doing these types of actions when we ourselves are not congressional members. So from a Pew Research Center poll in 2015, about 50% of the population, not just scientists, just general population, believes that ordinary citizens can influence the government if they make an effort. And going along with that, almost 60%, 58% believe that the active involvement in the government gives individuals some say in the government's actions. So something that I really want to stress and that I always talk about when I speak about these just grassroots efforts to promote our opinion on certain bills or on certain legislations, is that our congressional representatives are representing us, the constituents. So if they don't know the constituents' opinions on things, they can't properly represent what their constituency wants them to represent them as. So by voicing our opinions, by letting our representatives know exactly what we feel and how we fall in the acceptance or rejection of specific legislation, really does help activity go on in the government. So basically just like giving them our opinion so that they can properly represent us. Okay, and there are many ways that you can get involved. Town halls and congressional hill days are some in-person events and sometimes virtual events that really get you face-to-face with your representatives. So you can look up town halls by just Googling your zip code and town hall. You will get both federal and local government town halls. Both are very good to go to. At least one of interest to you. You can also host these town halls yourself. Congressional Hill Days is essentially just going to the Hill where the legislation and where the voting actually takes place, and talking to staffers or representatives of your representative, just to put a face to a name and really have that in-person type of promotion of your opinions there. You can do Congressional Hill Days through multiple organizations, which is the easiest way to get to it. Additionally, you can get a group together and contact a staffer with the information that I will provide later on, and you can organize a Hill Day that way as well. Various community days or lab or site tours are just inviting out your representatives to community events or to your lab, just so they can see what exactly is happening in their constituency. So if you have a conference or event in your university that you would like one of your representatives to attend, you can invite them to that. Additionally, inviting them to your lab and just showing them what exactly happens on the scientist side of things, just to personalize the research that we put out that, for the most part, is used in a lot of these bills related to science. And then last are postcards and letters. So I lump them together because they're essentially the same thing. Postcards look nicer, but you can also just use a piece of computer paper or loose leaf paper and write a letter to your representative stating everything that I'm going to share here. And that as well just lets your representative know your thoughts and opinions on the act of legislation that they will be voting on. All right, so how can you find your representatives? The easiest way to find your representative is to go to congress.gov, which is a screenshot is up here. And then you can go into the search and search for members, and then you can find your member by address. So you can either just type in your zip code or you can type in your home address into that box right there, and it will populate with your representatives. So I'm in Virginia. I typed in my zip code to get this output here. My zip code is actually split between different districts. So that's why I have 4 here. Generally, like I said earlier, you will have 2 senators. Mine are Tim Kaine and Mark Warner. And you will have a representative. My specific representative for my actual home address is Robert Whitman, but Jennifer McClellan is the representative for my neighbors literally down the street. So typing in your exact home address will give you more exact information. Something that I did want to say about this, you can click on your representative's name, and that will send you to their page in congress.gov that will give you their office address, their contact address, and also phone numbers, which is also here, phone numbers and how to reach them via email. So it's very simple to find that information, and then that is what you should be using to address your postcard or letter that you will create at the end of this meeting. So now that we know who our representatives are, how can we find active mental health legislation? And this doesn't just work for mental health legislation. Of course, we're focusing on that today, but anything that you are interested in, you can type in that keyword here, either if you know the exact bill, the bill numbers, or you can just type in the keyword. For all of these mental health bills that we have on this document, we typed in mental health, and that's what brought us all of these active bills that are related to mental health. So this is a little screenshot of the document. I didn't know how to link it directly into the PowerPoint, but it should be linked at the bottom of this recording or passed out to the members that are attending this live. And it is just a PDF file of all of the active mental health legislation up through May 18th, 2023. So we're focusing on the 118th Congress and House bills and Senate bills that are active at the time of this recording. So we have who sponsors the bill, just in case it is your representative who's sponsoring the bill, and also the co-sponsors of that bill with a brief summary of what is included in the bill so that we all understand what's happening when we write to our representatives. So if you find a bill that's interesting, each title is hyperlinked to the congress.gov page for the bill. You can get the full text of what the bill is actually proposing. So you have all of the information that is out to the public at that time. Okay. So now that we know our representative and we know the bills that we might want to focus on, we're going to talk about how to write your postcard. So writing your postcard is in 3 separate sections, or we like to do it in 3 separate sections: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. It's kind of like writing a book report for primary school, right? So the introduction is going to have your key information. So your name, your district, your affiliation, and other relevant information. And so I put an example at the bottom here. For this, it would be hi, representative or senator, whatever their last name is. My name is, for me, Gladys Shaw. I'm a neuroscientist and member of the National Science Policy Network and resident of District 1 in Virginia. And that would be my little introduction, the first sentence on that postcard. The body is going to have the legislative details. So the bill number, the relevant co-sponsors, a brief summary of the bill, etc. So for this, my little example is I wanted to bring attention to HR 1689, sponsored by Representative Abigail Spanberger in Virginia's 7th District, and also the former representative of the district that I'm currently in. And that bill is to award grants to K-12 schools, increasing mental health services and support. And then I would add in a sentence to its importance. For me, this is important because all of my research is in adolescent mental health and how keeping adolescents healthy and bringing attention to their mental health care gives rise to healthy adults. It's important to have this intervention at the primary school stage so that it creates a more healthy and active adults population in the near future. And lastly, we have the conclusion or the takeaways. So are you requesting to support this? Are you requesting to go against this? Because not all bills are positive towards mental health. Some of them want to either cut mental health spending or reallocate it, which you might be for or against, or just something in general that you don't agree with in a particular bill that's proposed. So for this one, requesting support as mental health services should be readily available to all children. And always remember to thank your representative for their time and attention, whether it is the representative themselves reading it or one of their staffers reading it. It does take time out of their day to look at a postcard or look at a letter and just take it in, whether they respond to it or not. So just always thank them for their time before you sign off with your name. Okay, so we have this sample text here. This is just a basic outline of what you can say if you don't really know what to say. I'm going to leave this up for a couple of seconds, but feel free to screenshot this, or if you're watching a recording, to pause this, and you can copy or paraphrase or use it as a framework for your own postcard or letter. And also I've added on here that they can reach out to the NSPN through their email accounts with a subject line, Attention Advocacy Committee, for any and all scientific questions. So something that is great for us as scientists is that when we do talk to these representatives, we do get the chance to introduce ourselves as a reservoir of knowledge for all scientific questions. So even if they have a question about, I don't know, ecology, which is something that I don't do, I can say, hey, thank you for your question. I'm not a subject matter expert on that, but this other person in NSPN is, and then give them their contact information or just pose it out to the group, etc. Or if they do ask something about adolescent mental health, for example, I can say, oh, I'm a subject matter expert in this, and XYZ papers or legislation papers, publications related to that might be helpful for you to read over and form your opinion or your position. There have been a couple of Hill days that some staffers have come to me and the group that I was working with asking for specific mental health and adolescent stress and trauma information. And because that is my subject expertise, I was able to give them a short little summary of relevant papers and publications and links to them, send it over to that staffer that has been sending it to their boss, who is our representatives, and it helps them form their opinion with some data to back it up. So that's the great part about being a scientist that a lot of people don't talk about. You could have a hand in a lot of like very small things that have a large impact like that. So yeah, so just be sure to add this last little sentence here, just so we can enable that for us. All right, so I'm going to give everyone time to write their postcards, and I will stop the recording before I open the floor for questions about this session. But thank you to everyone on the Mental Health Advocacy Committee and the Postcard Planning Committee, pictured here. And thank you to NSPN for allowing us to have this meeting and printing out these really awesome postcards for us to send to our representatives. If you have any questions about this or anything else, please feel free to reach out to NSPN through the website. If you're not a member, I encourage you to join as well. Reaching out to the email address for any outstanding questions, and also checking them out on social media at SciPol Network. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording now, and thank you guys for listening.